Buckle in, sports fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show. The program will be starting in just a couple of minutes, so grab your popcorn and get ready to enjoy the show. While you're waiting, make sure you're following us on social media at WHBC Stream and staying tuned to WHBCStream.com. We're so glad to have you today on the program, and we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line on Twitter or call the show 352-639-0036. And thanks again for tuning in.
HBC. Well, it is. A good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there. Here at 10:14 here on this Monday night on the William Haynes Show. As always, live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. One thing and one thing only on the docket for tonight's show. Previewing Game 6 of the 2020 World Series between your Tampa Bay Rays and their Los Angeles Dodgers. LA Dodger Town is up 3-2. The Rays on the brink of elimination. They've got to win 2 straight if they've got any eyes on capturing their first World Championship in franchise history. It's been a long way coming. Obviously, we know what it took to get here, the 40-20 regular season. And a Game 5 win over the Yankees, a Game 7 win after blowing a 3-0 lead against the Houston Astros. And I think even in this World Series, it took quite a lot, I think, even just to get to this Game 6. I had predicted that the Rays would win the series in 6 games. If the Rays are to win it at all, it will have to be in 7 games. But just to make it to this Game 6, they got to the other side of that second off day, which I think is so huge because of how much the bullpen plays into the Rays' success. I'm not sure it matters too much for the Dodgers because even their bullpen when rested is certainly gettable. I know Blake Treinen had a nice, easy save last night, and I think we kind of forget about him, Kenley Jansen, and I think some of those guys get all the flack or the headline. But Blake Treinen was a legitimate closer of the year candidate for the A's a couple years back, and the Dodgers were able to bring him in. So they've got certainly options. But I think the off day, obviously, is today. We're about 22 hours away from Game 6 of the 2020 World Series. So I think the off day probably plays into the Rays' hands. I know the Dodgers, they have a couple of guys dinged up, Cody Bellinger with the back issue and things like that. I don't know how much that matters either. For the Rays, no real injuries, so it's just a pitching standpoint. They didn't even use, or they didn't have to use, I guess, a lot of their big arms in Game 5. It was just Castillo getting an inning and a third, but only 8 pitches, although he did appear in multiple innings, if that's something you care about. An inning from Sheriff and an inning from Thompson, and both were 16 pitches or less, and a couple outs from Aaron Loop. So Nick Anderson will be, at this point, on 2 days rest. Peter Fairbanks will be on 2 days rest, and those guys weren't very taxed in Game 4 either, and I've got all that stuff pulled up. They've in this postseason, Fairbanks, Castillo, and Anderson have all appeared in at least a game where they pitched 2 innings full, and the pitch count typically doesn't get too outrageous for Fairbanks. He's got 2 innings against the Astros of 20 pitches, 2 innings against the Yankees of 40 pitches, so he can, I guess, go pretty deep. For Castillo, he's pitched 2 innings against the Yankees in that Game 5 of 29 pitches, and that's it. He's appeared in multiple innings, but has not gotten 2 innings full, and it looks like it did not do it during the regular season, which makes sense. And for Anderson, probably the most taxed of all, it seemed like during the regular season they were determined not to have him pitch in multiple innings, but in the postseason he's done it pretty much every appearance. There's only been, I guess, twice where he's only appeared in 1 inning that I can see. He's got 2 innings against the Astros at 22 pitches, 2 2/3 against the Yankees of 32 pitches, and 2 innings of 22 pitches also against the Yankees. So he's prepared. He's stretched out to go deep. I think we can all agree he has not looked as effective as the Nick Anderson that we've known since he came to the Rays. I think part of that is just he's having trouble locating his pitches, and also the Dodgers are very good at getting to those kind of guys. I mean, you want to make a comparison, I guess, on a bit larger scale. Nick Anderson, he's a 2-pitch pitcher. He's got the fastball up basically and the curveball down when he's really working his stuff. And if that reminds you of anybody, it's Tyler Glasnow. And with Tyler Glasnow, he got roughed up pretty good in both of his starts. So I guess that kind of archetype, if you will, the Dodgers don't seem to have a problem with at all. And I don't know if that's a fair comparison or not, but that's just something I guess that I can liken it to. So that's just a sneak peek of what's ahead. I've got all kinds of charts in front of me, baseball reference pages, all kinds of stuff that I don't normally do. But I think I would hate for this to be the case. But there's a potential that this could be my last game preview show of the year, knock on wood, all that stuff. And even if the Rays are able to win tomorrow, I won't have a game preview show as comprehensive as this one, as it's just going to be on the tail end of a Game 6 recap. So either way, it's gonna be a wild night tomorrow, I guess. Right off the cuff, I mean, if we're gonna, I guess we have to be on the air the night that they lose just to get it over with and put the season to bed. And I guess just we can all go our merry way. And then if they win, recapping that game again, I have the compulsion to knock on the wood there, and then preview a Game 7. So with that being said, I'll open up the show right now to callers. If you want to call in the show, give your thoughts about maybe how the Rays have looked this series, how you would like them to attack the Dodgers in Game 6, pitching-wise. We know it's going to be Blake Snell against Tony Gonsolin, but with the bullpen, maybe how you would like the lineup, guys that you would like to see hit or not hit. 877-566-1020 is the number to call. During the show, I'll probably keep putting the link out on various places. At WHBC Stream is the Twitter. Definitely make sure you follow that so you don't miss any future shows. The link automatically goes out on there when we're live, but also you can tweet your thoughts if you aren't so inclined to call in. So with that being said, I'm actually going to try and multitask here, get the link out a couple different places just to make sure we've got people tuning in. So we'll take care of that. And I guess dive right into it. I don't necessarily have a particular order to do things. I mean, I have a couple of lineup predictions. I've got matchup charts. I've got a lot of stuff on Tony Gonsolin because it's going to be a full start for him. It looks like I've got the Game 2 box score, so we can look at kind of how both of the teams decided to play those games. So I guess we'll probably let's start with Game 2 and just kind of give you an idea. Or actually, first, I know I'm all over the place. Let's take a quick step back and just look at the series as it's gone so far. It's really been back and forth. One game, one team wins a game that one game apiece. No team has been able to win 2 games in a row so far this series, and we certainly hope that trend would continue so that a Game 7 could be at least in force. So Game 1 was a Dodgers 8-3 over the Rays. It was Glasnow on the mound, and he held them scoreless for about 3 innings, and then in the 4th, Bellinger put him on the board with a homer to make it 2-0. Rays got a solo home run from Kiermaier in the 5th, but then in the bottom of that frame, the Dodgers opened it up to make it 6-1. And clear to see that the game was over at that point. And that's really been, I think, one of the biggest storylines of this series is anytime the Rays can get any momentum, anytime they have a nice offensive inning, the very next half inning, the Dodgers just completely come out and obliterate whatever pitcher for the Rays that they're facing and steal the momentum right back. I know Kevin Cash did a little, I guess, interview on Zoom or for MLB Network, whatever was the case, and he had alluded to maybe that the off day could favor the Rays also because if you believe in momentum from day to day and the old adage of momentum is only as good, I guess, as your next day's pitcher, I would certainly give the Rays the advantage in that category. Tony Gonsolin, a guy who has not started a whole lot of games in his career, was brought up in 2019, has started only 9 games this season. He didn't even start the season on the roster. I know that the Dodgers traded some starters and things along those lines, but Gonsolin, not extremely experienced, especially in the postseason, only has, it looks to me, like 1 postseason start to his name. Blake Snell at this point has several. I don't think Blake Snell has pitched extremely well. His best start was 5 2/3 of no runs against the Blue Jays, but he's certainly the best starter I think that the Rays have had in this series, the 4 2/3 of 2 runs in Game 2. But getting back to where we were, in Game 1, Glasnow got beat around 6 runs, 6 walks. It was just a bad start all around. Dodgers pounced early offensively. The final score was 8-3. They didn't have to use any of their A relievers either, so they got a nice start and a win from Kershaw in that one. For the Rays, they didn't use any big guys either, Yarbrough, Fleming, and Curtis. Game 2, Rays, nice response. They win by a score of 6-4, and this is the game that we'll take a look at a lot in the show. It was Snell versus Gonsolin, which it'll be the rematch of that tomorrow night. Snell, as we said, 4 2/3 of 2 runs. Gonsolin was only an opener. He faced only 6 men, so didn't even get through the order first time through, just an inning and a third of a run. It was a solo home run to Brandon Lau in the first inning, and then a walk to Manny Margot, but that was it. All the other guys that he faced, he retired. Looking at the way that's, and again, they had 9. It looks like nine guys, 9 relievers appear in the game, or I think 8. Different relievers for LA. A lot of guys just go 1 inning apiece, so they really strung it together like a pure bullpen day. The Rays, I mean, they were up on the scoring. They had a 2-run double in the 4th and a 2-run homer in the 5th. So after 5, it was 5-0. Actually, the Dodgers put up 2 in the bottom of that inning, and then it was 6-2 after 6-3 after the 6th inning. Dodgers put on another one in the 8th to make it 6-4, and so it was the A bullpen locking it down. It was Anderson had to come on early to clean up Snell's mess, and then got the 6th inning. It was Fairbanks to get basically the 7th and part of the 8th. Then Loop took care of some, and Castillo. So it was actually Loop getting the biggest outs late in the game. So it was a little bit reverse of that, but Loop performed quite admirably, and then Castillo just faced the last batter and recorded the save. So that evened the series at 1 game apiece. In Game 3, Dodgers win 6-2. It was Charlie Morton against Walker Buehler. Buehler 6 innings of 1 run. Morton got pretty beat around, 4 1/3 of 5 runs, his worst postseason start maybe in his career, at least that I could find. I mean, he's been absolutely stellar in this year's postseason, and really since he came over for the Rays. He had 2 really solid starts in 2019 in the playoffs, so was kind of a surprise to see. It just seemed like his pitches were getting too much of the plate, and the Dodgers were taking advantage of it. And then the bullpen didn't do too bad. I mean, they pitched basically, the rest of the 5 innings, giving up only 1 run in the process. Curtis, Sheriff, Thompson, McClanahan. The game wasn't particularly close, so they didn't have to bring in the A-pen. Dodgers scored in the first, a 1-0 solo home run from Turner. Then after the 4th inning, it was 5-0 Dodgers, and then that pretty much put it away. It was 6-1 in the 9th, and Arozarena hit a home run. And by the way, if you weren't already aware, he's pretty much got all the postseason records for a position player. Most hits, not just for a rookie, but for any player. Most home runs for any player in the postseason, and I think he's up there like top 2 or 3 as far as batting average and some of those other statistics. He's really been a do-it-all guy for the Rays, and certainly, I don't know if they would have won the Yankees, the Astros, or have even been this far in the Dodgers series if not for what Arozarena has done. So Certainly a really interesting story, and I think is nice because it's allowed the Rays to be, I guess, exposed to national media and things like that, because the Rays usually a team that's ignored, but they have a story that can't be ignored in what Arozarena has done, setting all these historic marks. So got a garbage time home run in the ninth, but it was meaningful in some way. So Dodgers win Game 3, 6-2, take a 2-1 lead. Game 4, I guess I'm doing this so I don't have to, I guess, paint over this. If they end up losing the series, I won't have to do a recap then, I suppose. Game 4, a game for the rest of our lives. If you weren't listening to me the night that I did that, I can't even remember what day Game 4 was. I think it was Saturday night, I want to say. Definitely go back and listen to it. It was a weird show for me to do. I mean, it was absurd because the walk-off win in the World Series, it really was the best baseball game that I've watched as a baseball fan, all that stuff. Just a shootout as well. Urias going 4 2/3 of 2 runs, so he'll be available probably not until Game 7, I would suppose. I mean, he'll be on 2 days rest tomorrow, so I don't know about if he would come in. But on Game 7 on Wednesday, he'd be on 3 days rest, so he may be a candidate to get some outs. Yarbrough got the start, 3 1/3. He got through the order basically 2 times through, and then, just the rest of the guys. Thompson, Fairbanks, Castillo, Loop, Anderson, Curtis. Anderson actually got charged with a blown save. Curtis ended up getting the win. Went back and forth. I think it set a World Series mark for most consecutive half innings with a run scored. It was like 6, 7, or 8. I don't exactly remember which one. Just huge moments for the Rays. Looking at a couple of homers to bring it within 1 early. Arozarena that made it 2-1 LA in the 4th. Renfroe with a solo home run that made it 3-2 in the 5th. So they were hanging around. Of course, the Dodgers were responding every step of the way. And they finally broke through in the 6th. That was a 3-run homer for Brandon Lowe that made it 5-4 Rays. And then, of course, the Dodgers take the lead in the 7th. Made it 6-5. Bottom of the 7th, another solo home run. This time from Kevin Kiermaier to make it 6-all. Dodgers go up 7-6 in the 8th. And then bottom of the 9th, the Brett Phillips single. Will always remember the error, the stumble from Arozarena, and the rest was history. That tied the series at 2 games apiece. I think at 3 games to 1 would have been in real bad shape, especially with the way that, that would have been a shame for the season to end that way. Another season to end on a poor start from Tyler Glasnow, I think. That would not have been good for anybody involved. So Game 4 was pivotal in many ways, and it allowed the Rays to slip up a bit in Game 5, which they certainly did. Game 5, they lost 4-2. They were in it every step of the way. Yesterday's show was certainly a difficult one, just because of how close. I mean, it really was for the Rays. I mean, not that the bullpen blew a lead or anything, but just how many chances they had. It was basically rescuing defeat from the jaws of victory is kind of the saying that I would like to use to kind of describe it. It was Kershaw against Glasnow, a rematch of Game 1. Kershaw 5 2/3 of 2 runs. Glasnow ended up gutting through 5 innings of 4 runs. He had like 30-plus pitches of 2 runs in the first inning, and he ends up getting around, and obviously gave up a couple more runs, a solo home run, and an RBI double, I believe. But 5 innings was huge. They only had to use Loop, Castillo, Sheriff, Thompson. So, and with the off day today, they're in perfect shape, I think, for Game 6. Obviously, we would have preferred it to be 3-2 in favor of the Rays so that they could potentially maybe shut down a Game 6. But that's not the way that it's meant to be. And, can't say it enough. Game 6, we can't wait for it. Looking at the way that game went, it was the Dodgers pounced early again. 2 runs in the first inning. Then they put up another home run to make it 3-0 after 2. In the 3rd inning, an RBI triple for Yandy Diaz to make it 3-1. And then Arozarena is actually able to single off of a high curveball to make it 3-2, and that was huge that they got within a run. We'll always probably remember in the 4th inning, it was Manny Margot. He gets a leadoff walk. He steals for second, and the throw from the catcher, Austin Barnes, I believe. Austin Barnes was wide, and Margot makes his way over to third. So it's as good as basically a leadoff triple. They walk Renfroe, so it's runners at the corners with nobody else. A pop-up for Wendell, unproductive out. Strikeout for Adames, unproductive out. And with 2 outs, makes sense. I don't understand why people would criticize the move. We found out that it was entirely on Manuel Margot to steal for home and was really close of getting that. That would have tied the game at that point. So they get a man at third basically with no outs, and they can't bring him across. And the Dodgers responded basically a couple innings later with a home run for Max Muncy, a ginormous shot, 434 feet. But Max Muncy really made sure to admire it. They made it 4-2 Dodgers, and there was no runs for either team the rest of the way. It was really the first time, I guess. I mean, looking at, it was kind of the first win that they really had to lock up with the A bullpen. It was Dustin May getting an inning in 2/3. So I don't know if we would see him tomorrow. Maybe a Game 7 type candidate, but they're going to have Walker Buehler in Game 7. So we may see Dustin May on basically a day's rest of 30 pitches. I don't think that's outrageous by any means, but he's been an absolute weapon out of the pen. Victor Gonzalez and then Blake Trinan. It looks like they're not going to go with Kenley Jansen in another safe situation, which makes sense. I mean, they've got Pedro Baez. Blake Trinan, I think, is going to be their guy. I've got the matchup chart in front of me, and we'll talk about that later. Basically, there was probably an easier way to do it, to be honest with you, but I went and just looked at the game logs and basically just wrote down every Rays hitter and then how they did against every reliever. So, we have their stats against relievers and things like that as well. So, going to be interesting to see, Gonsolin is certainly gettable, and but the Rays are going to have to, I think the biggest part of the success tomorrow is you've got to score against Gonsolin early. The stats for Gonsolin prove that. I think just the Rays model proves that. If they can't get a lead, then they can't lock it down with the pen. Again, you have to play into your strengths. And the strengths for the Rays is get a lead early, have the starter go 5 innings of shutdown ball, and then go to one of the best bullpens in baseball, and then hopefully set up a Game 7. So that's basically it for that. I guess with that being said, I'm realizing I may not get to a full hour as I was hoping, but that doesn't really matter. Again, if we've got anybody listening you'd like to call in, share your Rays thoughts, it is 877-566-1020 number to call however long we're on the air. Feel free to call in at any time as well. Taking tweets at WHBC Stream, getting you ready for tomorrow's Game 6 between the Rays and Dodgers. It's first pitch at 8:08 against Blake Snell and Tony Gonsolin. Looking more into that Game 2 game. Looking at the lineup, was Meadows to lead off. Renfroe moved up to bat. It was Lau batted second. Arozarena third. J-Man Choi cleaned up. And then Margot, Wendell, bottom 3 of Adames, Kiermaier, Zunino. So it was in the outfield. Arozarena in left, Kiermaier in center, Margot in right. And then Wendell at third, Adames at short, Lau at second, G-Man Choi at first, Zunino obviously caught, and Meadows was the DH. They may go with the lineup at least similar to that again. The righty-lefty platoon splits for Gonsolin, they don't really he's not even a reverse split guy either. I don't know if this is a thing, but if anything, he's an even split guy. I mean, his averages on base percentage, OPS, slugging, even earned run average, I guess if they calculate that way, it's all even as far as against right-handed hitters or left-handed hitters. So it made sense to go with basically 5 lefties and 4 righties. So I charted out a lineup that was like that, and then if they decide they want to go heavy lefty just to change things up, put that out there as well. I'll touch on this later, but just in case anyone doesn't listen to the whole show, want to get some of the better stuff out, I guess. Blake Snell, I looked at his stats. He's about had an even amount of starts with Perez and Zunino catching, and he is about twice as good with Michael Perez. So Zunino caught his game 2 start, 4 2/3 and 2 runs, not bad, but he did walk 4. His walk numbers are a little bit lower with Perez, so I don't know. And again, in the World Series, I mean, I know sometimes the manager will call out signs from the dugout and things like that, but it seems like Perez maybe just calls a little bit better game for what Snell can do. So the numbers at least support that, and I know it goes a little bit deeper than that, but just what I could find, it looks like the right move would be to start Michael Perez. I know in a do-or-die game, Kevin Cash probably is not comfortable with that. They'd prefer to go with Zunino, and I know the reason why they keep going with him is he's better defensively, but he also can frame pitches a lot better. He's not very crafty with the framing. I think he's a good catcher. I think he's even good defensively, but he's much smaller, and to me, he's a contact hitter, whereas Zunino gives you more pop in the bat. But Zunino hasn't really given you anything offensively. But if you want the framing, which I know Kevin Cash is going to want to do in an elimination game, he'll end up going with Zunino, I'd imagine. But again, keep in mind, ERA, batting average, it's all about twice as good with Michael Perez. So just throwing that out there, and you'd get the righty on lefty potential with Gonsolin as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. Gonsolin, he only faced against 6 batters. Let's do it pitch by pitch stuff. The leadoff man, Austin Meadows, he popped out to shortstop, but it was a 7-pitch at bat. Gave him a couple of fastballs, one middle, one middle away. Meadows looked at both of them, down 0-2, then took a fastball up and away for ball 1, fouled off a splitter low, so finally got a first off-speed pitch. Took another fastball high and away. So he was definitely mixing up eye level. He would go middle, then he would go down, then he would go up, then he would go down, then he would go up. Then he went middle with a fastball, middle in. I know lefties like that, and Meadows was just able to foul it off, so it's 2-2. And then a splitter, I think that hung a little bit. It didn't break like the 1-2 pitch did, and Meadows wasn't able to make solid contact with it. He just popped it out to shortstop for the first out of the game. And that brings me to the next thing I wanted to do. Tony Gonsolin, his pitch mix, he's got 4 pitches. This is courtesy of baseballsavant.mlb.com. It's just a advanced stats tool that they have available. Throws the fastball. It's a 4-seamer 47.5% of the time. Throws a split finger. I believe that's a changeup. I believe split finger change about 30% of the time. So that's pretty significant for a guy for changeups. In comparison, Snell, well, he throws his changeup 20% of the time, so about 10% less. He throws the sliders about 16% of the time, and the curveball only about 6%. So I guess looking at ESPN, what they call the splitter, I would guess that's split finger. I don't know why would get confused with that. Yeah, so split finger, splitter, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's considered a changeup, but I know everyone kind of has a different definition for different pitches. And then just in case you're wondering, for reference, Snell throws his fastball 50% of the time, changeup 20%, slider 15%, and curveball 15%. So he's a little bit more even with his mix. Seems like Gonsolin, as reliant on the fastball, but really likes his changeup, slider okay, and the curveball is the pitch that he won't throw that often. Threw just fastballs and we'll call changeups to Austin Meadows for the first out. Then Brandon Lau came up, swung through a fastball middle of the zone, then took a fastball down and in for ball 1, then took a slider down and in, didn't chase, it's 2-1, then took a fastball high and away, 3 balls, 1 strike, got himself into a hitter's count, and that's where he can really do some damage against Gonsolin. Got a fastball middle, and was actually able to connect with it for a 410-foot home run. Rosarena, he took I don't know if this is registered correctly, because it came up, let me just check this. I guess it could be. It came up as a slider, but it was up in the zone, so I don't know if it was a slider or not, but took it for strike 1. Then swung and missed at basically the changeup, the split finger, kind of middle, but a little more down and away. So he's down 0-2 out of the gate. So Gonsolin to that point had done a good job mixing his pitches. Started first pitch fastball in the Meadows, first pitch fastball to Lau, and then a first pitch slider to Arozarena. Then took a fastball high and outside for ball 1. Then on a 1-2 count, gave him a slider. This time did get it down and away, and Arozarena popped up on it. Then Choi took a fastball, first pitch fastball, middle away for ball 1. Then took a changeup in the zone for strike 1. Swung through a fastball. That got a lot of the plate for strike 2. Then a slider up and in for ball 2. Then on a 2-2 pitch, a fastball high and away, and Choi climbed the ladder and struck out on it. Top of the second, Margot started off the inning, first pitch fastball. Basically a leadoff walk, threw a couple changeups in there, and a fastball low. So that's pretty much his approach, at least that we saw. Margot then stole second, so you can steal off of him. Austin Barnes was the catcher as well. Joey Wendell, first pitch fastball. So I mean, it makes sense that you're going to go to the first pitch fastball more times than not. He takes it for strike 1. And one thing I noticed about Gonsolin is the numbers show that you're much better swinging at the first pitch, and a good average when I guess the at-bat ends after the first pitch. More times than not, well, I mean, 300 average, so 30% of the time, not necessarily more times than not, but more times than with other pitchers, you're actually going to be able to get a base hit off of it. And looking at this, it certainly proved itself over, because it seems like with him, I mean, he's got decent stuff, but it seems like he's kind of committed to, he wants to just get strike 1. He likes to get ahead, so if he's going to give you a first pitch fastball, and again, it's 93, 94, 95. It's not 101 like with Dustin May. And again, pick your spots. Do you want to hit 93 fastball middle of the plate, or do you want to wait until later in the game where it's 101 and the fastball is moving all over the place? That's the thing for the Rays. I mean, I know the bullpen is gettable, but this is a game. Pick your spot. I mean, really take advantage early. The Dodgers, they only have a small amount of weaknesses, a small window to attack, and the Rays just need to be able to do that. So Wendell took the first pitch fastball, then a changeup down and in for ball 1, then got another fastball basically in the same spot, and he flew out on it. So did make contact, but just not nearly enough. And then that was it for him. Floro replaced him after that to basically face Adames in that inning, and also Kiermaier. So he didn't face the bottom of the order. So looking at that, he faced 6 men. It looks like to me through 5 first pitch fastballs. The only one that he didn't was a slider to Arozarena, and to me that's just a guy that's an otherworldly hitter. So you just want to mix things up. But I mean, you're telling me that Gonsolin is going to throw a first pitch fastball that gets a lot of the plate 70-80% of the time, and the numbers prove that you're much better off swinging at the first pitch. And that's been a big issue for the Rays as well, is they've really struggled. They haven't been able to get ahead in counts, and they've been good at not chasing pitches early in counts, although they're bad at chasing pitches late in counts. But they're behind 0-1 or 0-2 in just about every at bat, and the ones that I guess they're not walking in, because they have been able to walk a lot. And another thing about Gonsolin as well, looking at his balls to strikes ratio. The numbers prove that he's good at establishing the first pitch strike. Again, I can tell you that that's something that's important to him, because every number I look at, every chart, he wants to get ahead. He doesn't have the high velo, so he would rather get ahead, get into a pitcher's count, and then throw you a slider or something in the dirt, or get you to maybe miss time on the split finger change. So that's his strategy. Another thing, a neat little wrinkle that I found in there, it's a shame that we only faced the AL and NL East this year, but according to Baseball Savant on MLB.com, similar pitches to Tony Gonsolin based on velocity and movement. Guys that you would know, Chris Paddock, Zach Plesac, both pretty good pitchers, but the only one that we faced this year, the 2020 Michael Wacha season, if you recall, we faced him on September the 24th of this year. It was an 8-5 win over the Mets in Citi Field. Michael Wacha, he went 6 innings, 4 earned runs. And guys that did well against him, Brandon Lau, 2 for 5. Arozarena, 3 for 5. Adames, 2 for 4. Margot, 2 for 2. So those are guys that were able to take advantage. If you recall, he struck out the side in the first inning. I just want to take a quick peek at that. He established the first pitch fastball more times than not. So it looks, it makes sense that he's a similar pitcher in that regard. So, and Wendell as well even homered off of Wacha's changeup that is a lot like Tony Gonsolin. And I know Wendell's been kind of close to getting some extra base hits, but I know he's had some doubles as well, but some homers that's been missing at 4 in the regular season. So you want something to kind of relax you or make you feel better about tomorrow's game. I know the game 2 outing against Gonsolin wasn't great. It was just the home run for Lau. Michael Wacha, again, you look at the pitch mix, the statistics, velocity, whatever. Michael Wacha is a lot like Tony Gonsolin, and against Wacha, 6 innings, 4 runs. They only struck out 4 times, and they did not walk. And Wacha, similar to Gonsolin in that he's not going to give a lot of free passes, at least from what he's done in the regular season. And his one postseason start against the Braves did walk a handful, but it looks like for everything you want to look at, he's committed to getting over on you, establishing the first pitch strike, and going from there and trying to put you away. I know that the Rays have not been good late in counts, and that's going to be the thing against Gonsolin. So again, the key, swing early. Definitely take advantage of that first pitch fastball. I would love to see Randy. I know he's let some of those go in the past handful of games. Be aggressive. I think Gonsolin knows that, though. Like I said, he gave him a first pitch. What was it? A first pitch slider. So he may mix it up in that regard. But guys like Brandon Lau, if Meadows leads off, guys, even anywhere in the lineup, 1 through 9, try and swing at the first pitch fastball. It's going to get a lot of the plate. But if you don't, and you end up down in the count 1-2, 2-2, or whatever, good luck, because they're going to be chasing the curveballs and the sliders down in the dirt. And it seems like for a group that's had trouble swinging through pitches in the zone, that fastball changeup mix is going to be difficult as well, because there's about a 10-mile-an-hour velocity difference between those two pitches, and he throws them in just about the same spot. So it's going to look like the same pitch, but you're going to be early or late depending on what you're expecting. So we'll see about that. Next thing that we'll talk about, I suppose, throwing out different lineup ideas. I have 2 written down. My first lineup was what I would expect Cash to do, kind of, or what I have found that I would guess would be effective against Gonsolin. And then the second is if they decide they want to go aggressive lefty. So the first lineup is it's pretty much righty lefty, righty lefty, righty lefty. Dave Roberts, by the way, says that he wants Gonsolin to go 5 or 6 innings. That's the plan. It's not going to be like an opener type role. And I did listen to Gonsolin's little, or at least a clip of his presser that he did getting ready for this game. It is going to be a lot different than the Game 2 appearance for him. Gonsolin, he knows, they told him after Game 2 that he was going to start Game 6, obviously if there was one. So he's going to be on 6 days rest, which the stats show he's actually a little bit better on basically 4 or 5 days rest than he is on 6 days rest. And there's a decent sample size to prove that. So that might be a thing as well. But he's been able to prepare like it's a regular start. I don't know if he's appeared out of the bullpen, but maybe he's not super comfortable with the opener stuff. But that's just something to note. He did know he was going to start. He was able to prepare like it was a normal start, things like that. He said he took basically the first day off instead of, preparing to pitch on every 4th or 5th day or what have you. So we'll see how that goes as well. But getting to the lineups that I would imagine they would go with, Yandy Diaz to lead off and DH, batting second, Brandon Lau to play second base, batting third, or Arozarena to play left field, batting cleanup, Choi to bat first base, batting fifth, Margot in right, batting sixth, Wendell at third, batting 7th. Adames at shortstop, batting 8th. I'll go Zunino at catcher, and batting 9th, Kiermaier in center. If they want to go pure righty-lefty all the way through, they would do Kiermaier at 8th and Zunino at 9th. But I think that there's more value in the lineup. I say this a lot on my show. There's more value to having Kiermaier bat 9th and 8th, and he's actually been pretty good in the series, only because if he can draw a walk or get a single and he can get on, maybe he can steal second, and then you've got a runner in scoring position for your top guys. I would rather have Kiermaier at second with Diaz at the plate than Kiermaier at second with Zunino at the plate, and potentially with a 2-out situation. So that's how I feel about that. I know traditional knowledge would tell you just put your easier out in the 9-hole because theoretically he won't bat, I guess, as many times or in specific spots, whatever the case. But even as well, if it's the 9-1-2 hitters to start an inning, and we see that a lot, it just seems like the luck of the draw with the way the game goes. I would rather have Kiermaier, Yandy, and Lau than Zunino, Yandy, and Lau. I don't know. And another thing to note, too, at least in the past couple of games, it's been the bottom of the order that seems like they come up in the bigger spots. The top of the order just really has not been getting the job done. I know Lau has the 3 homers in the series, and that's good to see, but he hasn't been, I think, particularly great. Meadows has not been good. Arozarena, I know he's been good, but there was a spot last night in the 8th inning that he didn't come through in, and a couple others, but obviously you don't shoulder any of the blame on him. I think Choi has been pretty good. So, pretty mixed results as far as the top of the order. So, try and avoid, I guess, putting pressure on guys like Adames and Wendell who are there to play defense, not necessarily to play offense. Don't make them win offensive moments. And that was a big point of what I was saying on last night's show. And the way that goes, the lineup, Yandy righty, Lau lefty, Randy righty, Choi lefty, Margot righty, Wendell lefty, Adames righty, Zunino righty, Kiermaier lefty. So against a right-handed starter, they're going to go potentially 5 righties and 4 lefties, or they may try and swap it the other way around. And I guess the way to do that is, I don't know how they would do that, if they want to go Perez or Yoshi, whatever the case, at DH, or Meadows, actually. They would have Meadows instead of Yandy. But from Mark Tompkin on Twitter, this was earlier today, he says, Kevin Cash said they will consider some lineup changes for Game 6, mentioning Yandy Diaz is swinging better, and says they will be aggressive with bullpen if they have a lead, giving Dodgers as many looks as possible. So, didn't give up a whole lot, but the note about Yandy Diaz made a lot of sense to me. He got his first true extra base hit of the season. His only other one was a short porch home run in Yankee Stadium in the first row, and that would not have been a home run in any of the park. That's a routine fly out to right. So only singles, walks, strikeouts, and groundouts to the left side of the infield for Yandy Diaz basically this year. But it was a double hit, but because of Mookie Betts' misplay in right, it ended up being a rule triple. So showing a little bit of power. He's been hitting some singles. He had a couple leadoff singles in his 2 games against Clayton Kershaw. So righty on righty, I don't really care about that. With Tony Gonsolin, his splits are even with that as well. So I don't think righty lefty matters. If Cash decides that he wants it to matter, a lineup that I could propose is this: Meadows leading off in right field, Lau batting second at second base, Randy batting third in left, Choi cleaning up at first, Wendell batting fifth at third base, Yoshi batting sixth as the DH, Adames batting seventh as the shortstop, Kiermaier batting eighth as the center fielder, and Perez batting ninth as the catcher. So that would give you the 7 lefties and the 2 righties if you decide that you want to go that way against the right-hander Gonsolin. I'm going to advocate for Perez to start because righty on lefty, although I told you it didn't really matter, but also just because this game, as much as I would like it to just be about getting an early lead, I have a feeling it's going to be about run prevention. And Snell just seems like he has better numbers with Perez catching him than with Zunino. So I personally would prefer Cash to go with Perez. Perez hasn't really appeared in too many games in the playoffs. I know the one start he had against the Yankees, he actually had an RBI single. I love what he can do as a contact hitter at the plate, but we'll end up seeing with that. So those are my two proposed lineup changes. The first one that I mentioned, I would imagine to be more likely. It's more traditional, but the only caveat they may change, they probably would want Meadows in the lineup. Although they could, the thing that they did about Game 2, they kind of did a platoon thing because the righty Gonsolin, and then however they matched up the bullpen, I mean, they pinch hit for guys. Brasso, they brought him in, and he played first. Yandy, they pinch hit for Meadows, and he DH, things like that. Those kind of platoon spots. Randy came in and played left after he pinch ran, things like that. Brett Phillips did for Randy. So it may be another one of those, although, again, Gonsolin, he may go 5. I don't see how he could go 6. With everything that I told you, the Rays, obviously, they know how they need to attack them. You know, their advanced scouting is much more in-depth than mine, so again, if they attack the first pitch fastball, do some of those things, maybe they hit a couple home runs, whatever the case. It doesn't look like Gonsolin is going to walk a lot of guys, so getting base runners may be a struggle, but solo home runs have been the saving grace of this postseason for the Rays. So if they get, I wouldn't put it past them to get 2 or 3 off of some first pitch fastballs. Would love to see that. So definitely keep your eye out for that. And then the next thing that I want to point to as well against the bullpen, I've got the full chart. I mean, you want to know Floro. By the way, they only have 2 lefties out of the pen, Gonzalez and Adam Kolarek. So the others are righties. So I would imagine as well going with the 5 righties and the 4 lefties would make more sense, because that would keep your lefties on the bench for when basically they go to the pen. I mean, you want to pinch hit, you have those lefties to go against the righty. So keep Meadows on the bench, all that stuff. So, and I guess they would have Yoshi on the bench as well. Brett Phillips, I don't know. He's more of a pinch run than a pinch hit guy, even with the single. But either way, I guess I'll just do it this way. I guess kind of the lower leverage guys that they have at this point. Dylan Floro is usually the guy that comes in right after the starter leaves, and his only I guess matchups, he gave up a single to Margot, he struck out Meadows, gave up a double to Wendell, a fielder's choice to Adames, a ground out of Kiermaier, and a pop out of Zunino. So only gave up a couple of hits there. Victor Gonzalez, he's one of the lefties, but more of a lower leverage guy. He's faced a couple more, gave up a fielder's choice to Choi, a walk and a single to Brasso, a walk and a fly out to a Rosarena, a ground out and a lineup for Lau. So he did a pretty decent job at getting some of those top guys out. Got Meadows to pop out, Kiermaier singled, and Zunino lined out. Joe Kelly we saw, I think, in games 1 and 2. He's seen a decent amount, but more of a lower leverage guy. I think if they get 4 or 5 from Gonsolin, no matter what the score, I'd imagine they'd be fairly aggressive in trying to keep that game close or to lock down a lead again, because they would take the World Series with a win tomorrow. But Kelly, a single to Choi, a strikeout and a single to Margot, a fly out of Meadows, a ground out and a sac fly for Wendell. Both Adames and Kiermaier struck out in one at bat against him. Brewstar Gratterall, a right-hander. He's seen a couple of guys, another low-leverage guy. Well, low leverage is relative. He can throw 100. A fly out of Renfroe, a ground out and a single of Adames, a fly out of Kiermaier, and a ground out of Yoshi. So he's done a pretty good job in limited action. And then some of the higher leverage guys, if it's a high leverage lefty spot, it'll be Kolarek. He walked Choi, struck out Lau, and got Meadows to fly out. And in his only appearance, it was a 1-inning appearance in, I believe, Game 4, I want to say. And then a couple of it's pretty much their big 3: Pedro Baez, Blake Trinan, and Kenley Jansen. That may be subject to change. Pedro Baez is, I guess, maybe the first setup man. He's got a decent amount of action and has actually performed fairly well. A pop-up and a walk of Yandy Diaz, a fly-out and a ground-out of a Rosarena, so that's huge. They may like that matchup against Randy. A pop-up and a home run of Lau, so maybe that protects a Rosarena a little bit, although Lau, the home run, I believe, was like on a hung off-speed pitch. Renfroe struck out, Adames ground out, Kiermaier hit a home run off of Baez as well, and Zunino struck out. Dustin May, I don't imagine that he would appear tomorrow. He's only on 1 day's rest, but he only threw 30 pitches in like an inning and 2/3. But I would imagine they would probably, I guess their ideal, if they're going to have to use him, it would probably be in Game 7 behind Buehler. But either way, just if you're curious about matchups, I don't know how helpful this is to anyone. I found it to be fairly interesting. For Dustin May, got a Rosarena to ground out, a home run off a Lau and one face-off, a strikeout and a single for Margot, a single and a strikeout for Meadows, a double and a lineout for Wendell, a ground out and a flyout for Adames, a strikeout and a single for Kiermaier, and a ground out for Zunino and a flyout for Yoshi. So a couple of guys actually able to get hits, and I saw one of the Dodger fans that's on the Rays Discord where I know a good amount of my listeners have come from, and just want to take a chance to thank everyone tuning into the program tonight. That was saying that Dustin May is pretty unhittable, so that the Rays were actually able to knock him around a little bit said a lot. I mean, it's 100, 101, and a fastball that moves quite a bit. I mean, it can not sweep the entire length of the plate, but maybe half of it. And again, at 100 or 101, where you don't have but like a millisecond to figure it out, that's a lot of swing and miss. So the fact that they were able to line him up for some extra base hits as well, a home run and a double, and then a couple of 3 other singles. So they were actually able to get some decent hits off of him. The other A bullpen guys, Blake Trinan, we've seen him a good amount, and he's been fairly good. A ground out and a walk to Choi, a single to Rosarena, a single and a strikeout for Margot, a couple strikeouts for Meadows, a strikeout and a flyout for Wendell, and a strikeout of Adames. And for Kenley Jansen, I don't think they're going to want to bring him in a safe situation, at least after what happened with Game 4, to be honest with you. I know Dave Roberts keeps giving him a vote of confidence, but I don't know how you go with him again. A line out to Choi, a home run and a walk to Rosarena, a fly out of Lau. So, yeah, at least don't bring him in to face a Rosarena, most likely. A strikeout to Meadows, a line out to Wendell, a single for Kiermaier, a strikeout for Yoshi, and I'm pretty sure, I don't exactly remember, it wasn't a memorable hit, but I'm pretty sure Brett Phillips might have hit a single off of Kenley Jansen. So that's the matchup chart, and in case you're wondering, I totaled up. There was Alex Wood, who was a starter. He got a couple of innings in that bullpen game in Game 2. Again, we're not going to see low-leverage guys for the Dodgers in these next 2 games. It's just not going to happen, and Jake McGee got an inning pitched. I would bet a fairly good amount of money we're not going to see either of those guys, unless the game really gets out of hand in either direction. So I didn't put those into account, but the real relievers that they might see, they would probably prefer not to use Dylan Floro because he's not been so good. They'd probably prefer not to use Jansen. But again, the big guys, all in a day's rest at least. Pedro Baez, Blake Trinan, who I think is the new closer, and I don't know, maybe a move Brusdar Graterol in there as that new 3-headed monster, if you will. And then Victor Gonzalez and Kolarek is their lefty guys. And then, again, Joe Kelly and then maybe Dustin May as a couple of wild cards to throw in there. But if you're wondering how the lineup did against the entire bullpen as a whole, Yandy Diaz 0 for 1 with a walk, so not a whole lot of matchups against them. The only reliever he saw, by the way, was Pedro Baez. G-Man Choi, and I guess I'll do this, against Gonzalez, Kelly, Trinan, and Jansen, combined 1 for 4 with a couple walks. So he got on base 3 times in, 6 tries, so about half the time, or literally half the time. Brasso against only Gonzalez, 1 for 1 with a walk. Arozarena against Gonzalez, Baez, Dustin May, Blake Trinan, and Kenley Jansen. He combines 2 for 6 with 2 walks and a home run. Brandon Lau against Gonzalez, Baez, Dustin May, and Kenley Jansen goes 2 for 7 with 2 home runs, so he's been good against the bullpen. Manny Margot, and I think he's really had a great series and a great postseason. Margot against Dylan Floro, Joe Kelly, Dustin May and Blake Trinan has gone 4 for 7. All of his hits were singles. Renfroe against Baez and Gratterall is 0 for 2 with a strikeout. Meadows, who's really just not been good this series, he's still batting, I think, probably under 150. He's pretty much faced everyone. He's faced Floro once, Gonzalez once, Joe Kelly once, Dustin May a couple times, Blake Trinan a couple times, Jansen and Kolarek. 1 for 9. His only hit was a single off of Dustin May. Joey Wendell, he's faced just about everyone as well. Dylan Floro, Joe Kelly, Dustin May, Blake Trinan, Jansen. 2 for 8 with a double and a sacrifice fly. Willie Adames, another kind of Meadows-esque performance. Again, these everyday hitters have faced just about every of these kind of relievers. Against Floro, 1 against Floro, 1 against Baez, 1 against Kelly. 2 against May, 2 against Gratterall, 1 against Trinan, 1 for 8. His only hit, a single against Gratterall. Kevin Kiermaier, he's faced everyone but Trinan and Kolarek, so I'm not going to bother to read off the list again. You know what it is. He's 4 for 8 with a home run, so batting .500, and including a trip around the bases. That's good. Zunino, 1 against Floro, Gonzalez, Baez, and May is 0 for 4. Yoshi is 0 for 3 against May, Gratterall, and Jansen, so 3 righties. And then Phillips, I believe, is 1 for 1 with a single against Kenley Jansen. So I don't know exactly how that goes into things. I mean, just to give you an idea, I mean, if it's going to be a big moment against a bullpen guy, Brasso, obviously Randy, Margot, or Kiermaier are the guys that you want to see in that spot. Guys you don't want to see in that spot, Meadows, certainly. Adames, certainly. I'd probably put Wendell in there, Zunino. Those kind of guys that have not been good against just the relievers as a whole. So just something I thought was interesting. And one more time, just if you want to call in to the show, 877-566-1020. Again, thanks to everyone tuning into the show tonight, getting you ready for Game 6. I'm not sure how many people are into that. They're like, so I imagine, just like myself, many people nervous about tomorrow's game, and I can't blame you. But I think if anything, of the stuff that I've had that to bring to the table, if anything, it would make you feel potentially more comfortable about tomorrow's game. Game 7, I think I would be a little bit concerned about, but you'd be happy just to get there, I think, is the bottom line. But Buehler against Morton, I don't know. The Dodgers may have the edge, at least in the starter comparison, and you would hope that it would be a battle of bullpens if you can get Morton through that one clean. But either way, we got to get there first. So gave you the lineups maybe that they'll go, gave you bullpen matchups, all that kind of stuff. Basically gave you the full scouting report on Gonsolin. One more thing that I wanted to do is just really go do a deep dive on Gonsolin. Some of this is a repeat, a rerun of what I've already said, but there's some stuff in there and strategy against Gonsolin if you're into that sort of thing. So first of all, righty-lefty. Again, even splits, even sample size, a 192 average to righties, a 180 average to lefties. So if anything, it's more of a reverse split, that the righties are a bit better against the right-hander than lefties are. And pretty much, I mean, slugging, on base percentage, total bases, they're all pretty much even across the board. So I don't think that means a whole lot. Walks are even as well. Home runs are even. So again, I would go 5 righties, 4 lefties, or 5 lefties, 4 righties. And the only differentiating thing is if they decide to go Meadows instead of Yandy. I don't care about righty-lefty, especially because of the splits. I would rather have Yandy, so that would leave you to go more right-handers. Or if they potentially do what I think they should do and put Perez at catcher instead of Zunino, that would swap out a righty for a lefty as well. Some other splits, I don't know how much this really matters, but game outcome for pitchers in wins versus in losses, his stats. In games that this team wins, or I guess that's decisions, so not even team record. In winning decisions, he gives up a 170 average and pitches to a 2.17 ERA. And obviously, I mean, it makes sense. You're going to pitch a lot better in wins, but I just think it's interesting. In losses, he gives up a 2.36 average, which is significantly higher, but the ERA 2.5 ERA compared to a 2.17 ERA in wins. So, and sample size looks to be about the same as far as plate appearances and at-bats. So, the only meaningful thing to me, and I'm sure pretty much every pitcher has relatively similar splits, but if anything, against Tony Gonsolin, when it rains, it pours. So that's what I'm saying. If the Rays are going to be able to get to him, they could potentially score a good amount of runs. And I think, again, don't allow him to get ahead in counts. And the only thing you can do to prevent that is to swing at those fastballs and maybe to get him off of that as well. And then if he decides if he can't go with the first pitch fastball, then he'll have their first pitch off-speed stuff. And if it's a curveball or a slider, you can take that for balls and then maybe start walking some guys. So that's really how you have to play him, in my mind. The next thing on the list, another interesting thing for me, a batting order, basically 1 through 9, how guys do against him. And I don't know exactly what the takeaway is from this, but at least strategy for the Rays. Far and away the best, and this is probably the case for most guys, the best batter against Gonsolin is the leadoff man. The number one batter hits to his 275 average and an OBP of 356, so 35% of the time. So if it's Yandy, especially working his walks, it looks like he's given up 5 walks, I guess, to the leadoff man in his career. So you've got to be able to take advantage of that. It's pretty stingy down the line. Only a 103 average to the third hitter, which is surprising because those are a lot of good hitters. A 129 average to 4 hitters. An 0.27 average to 5 hitters. And mind you, this is not too small of a sample size. But then what's weird, the bottom of the order does really good as well. The 7-man, 265. The 8-hitter, 300. And the 9th hitter, 267, and that was when he played in the National League with pitchers hitting 9th as well. So that's something to me that is interesting. What that tells me is, imagine if he had been in game 5 where it was Adames and Wendell kind of squandering those opportunities with men on base. They both, I believe, went 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. So if that comes to bear again, maybe those 7, 8, 9 hitters come through, and again the leadoff man. And maybe they go with Meadows because, you know, maybe just try him, get him going or whatever. But I would imagine Yandy will probably be in the leadoff spot with Choi cleaning up. So hardly, I guess, middle of the order, 4, 5, 6 don't do too well. But the 7, 8, 9 hitters do well, and the 1 hitter does well. When you swing versus take the first pitch of a plate appearance, I thought this was very interesting as well. When you swing, and again, sample size about not too similar, so I'll just put this as a disclaimer. When you swing at the first pitch, 114 plate appearances, 105 at-bats, or when you take the first pitch, 225 plate appearances and 207 at-bats. So about twice as much in favor of taking the first pitch, which makes sense because a lot of hitters take the first pitch. That's why you throw the get-me-over strike. I understand the logic there. But when you swing at the first pitch, hitters against Gonsolin hit to a 219 average, get on base 26% of the time, an OPS of 627. And then when you take the first pitch, you only hit to a 169 average. So again, 219 versus 169. So a considerable difference there when you take the first pitch. On base percentage is only 30 points lower. But the OPS is 120 points lower. 627 versus 506, so a pretty wide gap in there as well. So again, all the numbers point to swing at the first pitch, and meaning he just throws get me over strikes that aren't exactly great fastballs. Averages when it comes to counts, balls and strikes. When you swing at the first pitch, and this is one that stood out to me, and no disclaimers as far as plate appearances and things like that. They're all relatively the same sample size. When you swing at the first pitch, or I guess when the at-bat, I guess, is finalized on the first pitch, hitters hit to a 324 average. So that's really nice. An OPS, by the way, of 730, which I believe is not bad. On a 1-0 count, 353, which makes sense, and then 2-0 and 3-0 is much more rare. Even on 0-1, so if he throws that get-me-over pitch and you take it for a strike, maybe he throws you an 0-1 changeup or something, Guys at 263 off of him on an 0-1 count, so that's not bad either. But when you start getting in some trouble is, I mean, even in a 1-1 count, I mean, 080 and a 2-1 count 150, so that's weird. He almost gets better, I guess, as the count goes up. But the numbers that make more sense. In an 0-2 count, so this is a very big point of strategy, I guess, for the Rays. Hitters in an 0-1 count at 263 off of him. If he gets to 0-2, hitters only hit 100 off of him with an OPS of only 258, so that's about a 500-point drop-off, which, I mean, it makes sense. Obviously, in an 0-2 pitch, you're going to be chasing it, stuff, things like that, but just don't let him get to 0-2, and how do you do that? Everyone at home listening can tell me. You swing at the first pitch. That's what you got to do. In a 1-2 count, hitters hit 164 against him, and in a 2-2 count, they hit 160 against him. And, I mean, there's all kinds of other ones, like, you want to know, full count, 167, so basically, what that tells me, even if the hitter is up in the count, if you get deeper into an at bat, you're not as likely to do well. So, I know this isn't the Rays' strategy. They like to knock guys out of games, but if you try and just take a bunch of pitches versus Gonsolin, he's gonna get by and get by pretty well. So, I don't care if there's 8 to 10 pitch innings. He's not gonna go complete game. I mean, I don't know. It just, to me. And I'm afraid that they won't do this. They won't play it as aggressively because they're facing elimination and they're going to want to feel him out, all that kind of stuff. Don't let the Dodgers establish dominance early on like they have done early in the series. If you want to feel Gonsolin out and just take pitches and see what he's got, blah blah blah, and then in the bottom of the first, someone hits a home run for the Dodgers, the game's over to me at that point. You got to get the lead first. You got to be able to lock it down. So being aggressive early in counts and even in the game, I think, is going to be huge against Gonsolin. And this is interesting as well. When the batter's ahead in a count, he's 198. When it's an even count, 196. So it's weird that that's even. And when the pitcher's ahead, 163. So pretty much kind of even splits, to be honest with you. Another interesting statistic. When hitters, the first batter, basically the leadoff man in a game, hits 278, gets on base 35% of the time, so a potential for Yandy, a leadoff walk or something. The guys that lead off the inning, which it's been a huge deal. The Rays in Game 5, in the 9 innings, 6 times, in 6 of those innings, they got the leadoff man aboard, so maybe they'll be able to continue that. Guys to lead off an inning, actually, maybe not. They only hit 198 against him to start an inning. 261 OBP, an OPS just under 600. So not, I guess, great in that category. So maybe that's a problem. By the way, first batter, basically leadoff men, batting average on balls put into play, 417 average. So please, Yandy Diaz, the swing's looking a little bit better. I would love to see Yandy go deep on a first pitch fastball. That would give the team the spark that they need. Kind of like he did in the wild card game a season ago. Batting average against number of outs in an inning, and I know some of these stats are kind of ridiculous, but I think something can be taken from everything, and we'll see tomorrow how much it really pays out. With no outs, hitters hit 225 against him. With 1 out, 190. With 2 outs, 135. So the numbers prove to me, I mean, he's good in clutch situations in later in innings, things like that. Whether it's later in game, later in inning, later in counts, he's better. So if that pattern shows you anything, it's that you need to be aggressive. You have to strike early. I can't say that enough times, and I probably shouldn't have pulled all this stuff up because I'm gonna be punching the air watching these guys take pitches and not be aggressive against him. With runners in scoring position, hitters are 220 against him, and an on-base percentage of about 300, and OPS is 718. So he's not exactly great with runners in scoring position, and the Rays have been abysmal in that category, so maybe they could come through. With men on base, and this is significant to me, basically, out of the windup right of the stretch, I believe with bases empty, he gives up a 164 average, but with men on base, a 229 average. So maybe he's a guy that's a lot better out of the windup and not out of the stretch. So if you can get a walk, if you can get a single, maybe that can turn the tide as well. So I think that's huge. scoring in the first inning should be very easy, and they did do that in Game 2. It was a home run for Brandon Lau. So if they can get a man on, and then maybe you can just turn the tide immediately, because if you make him go from the stretch, basically right out of the gate, I don't know, maybe that could change up some things. Well, he is a reliever, though, so you would think he would be, well, he has pitched in relief quite a bit, so you think that he would be okay out of the stretch, but I don't know. I guess I'm reaching. With men at third, he gives up a 333 average. That's interesting. With a man on first, 239. With a man on second, 182. With the bases loaded, a 143 average. So, I mean, that to me, some of that stuff is kind of bogus. Clutch stats, 2 outs, runners in scoring position, 074 average. So that doesn't give me a good sign. Only a 105 average on balls put into play. That's not great. Late and close, whatever that means. Okay, yeah, there's not a sample size for that. In a tie game, a 171 average. Within 1 run, a 172 average. Ahead, he gives up a 206 average. Behind, a 171 average. So he almost does better when he's behind or the game is close, whatever you have. I don't know exactly how they define these. In high leverage spots, a 250 average, an 821 OPS. In medium leverage, 218, and a low leverage spot, 132. So I don't know exactly if that's really that important. Inning by inning, he hasn't really pitched after the 6th inning in his career. The best is in the 4th. He gives up a 246 average. In the first, a 176. In the second, an 087. And the third, a 196. So we'll see. It seems like there's a spot that 3rd, 4th, 5th inning you can maybe get to him, but first inning I think is going to be huge. So a stat that means something for sure with the Rays and the way they look at things. A first plate appearance against him in a game, basically the first time through. Batters hit 161, get on base 208, slug 237, OPS at 445. So he's pretty good first time through. Second time through, significantly higher. A 219 average, 276 OBP. They slug 362 and an OPS of 638. A third time through, a much more limited sample size, which makes sense. He doesn't get deep into ball games. But for what it's worth, a 154 average, a 185 OBP, an OPS of 454. So smaller sample size, but second time through the lineup certainly is much better against him. Pitch count. I know some of these stuff is a reach. Before he throws 25 pitches, a 142 average, 26 to 50 pitches, 250 average, 51 to 75 pitches, a 192 average, and 76 to 100 pitches, a 107 average. Another thing for me, days of rest. He's going to be on 6 days rest, which he has not done a whole lot. He's only started 1 game on 6 days rest or more. Gives up a 200 average even, but so that's something that's a bit interesting to me. Like on 4 days rest, a 167 average. On 5 days rest, a 162 average. But again, small sample size. That might have just been the particular game, to be honest with you. But it is going to be something different for him, to say the very least. And then there's some other stuff. I mean, seems like fly balls is not good against him. It seems like ground balls and line. I mean, makes sense. Line drives are a lot better. So that's something to keep in mind too. Maybe you just want to keep it on the ground and not in the air. One thing that is noticeable, both with right-handers and left-handers, when it comes to batting average on balls put into play, or just any statistic, hitters are much more likely to get hits when they pull the ball, which is something the Rays have been doing, I think, too much of. I would like the Rays to hit more opposite way, but they don't do that a lot against Gonsolin. Basically, you're better off pulling it. So guys like Yandy Diaz or other guys, I mean, it seems like Adames pulls it quite a bit, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's something that, again, when left-handers pull, they hit to a 349 average. When right-handers pull, they hit to a 400 average. So that's something interesting to keep in mind as well. The sample size is a little small, but that's it for that. Another interesting thing as well that I found just looking in here, By umpire, they even have by umpire. Baseball Reference has it all. It's going to be Jerry Meals, I believe. Let me just double check that. I believe it is Jerry Meals that will be the home plate umpire tomorrow. I could tell you the whole thing if you want. Yeah, Game 6 is going to be Jerry Meals is the home plate umpire. I won't bore you with the rest. It doesn't really matter. But Tony Gonsolin nor Blake Snell has ever pitched while Jerry Meals is the home plate ump. So that could be something interesting as well. I don't know exactly what that would favor, if they're likely to call more balls or strikes the first time versus the second time that they call a guy, but just something interesting to throw out there as well. And the final point that I wanted to make about Blake Snell, because I have the numbers in front of me, he started, let's see, he started 11 games with Michael Perez. He's given to a 2.38 ERA and a 2.03 average. Mike Zunino, he started 13 games, so same sample size, a 4.53 ERA. So 4.53 versus 2.38, and an average of 2.22 versus 2.03. And 17 walks with Perez versus 20 for Zunino, so that's relatively close. So I would say all the stats prove that I would have Perez catching, and that gives you a righty-lefty advantage as well. Whether or not it determines that matters, who knows? But that's all I can say. I've emptied the bag of tricks. I've told you everything I know. Giving you, I thought, a lot of good stuff. I thought I really digged up some nice little nuggets there for you guys. So that's pretty much it, to be honest with you. I mean, the bullpen, something to touch on. Again, Fairbanks, Castillo, Anderson, they could all go multiple innings, and I think if they have the lead, that's what they're going to want to do. That might be a little tough with Game 7, and they have to strategize because they know that if they win, there's going to be a Game 7. That's the only way they can win the series. So that's going to be tough. I mean, if Fairbanks, Castillo, and Nick Anderson all go 2 innings, it'd be in a little bit of trouble tomorrow. So I don't know if they'll go to that extent, but Nick Anderson, I think, could give you 2 and pitch tomorrow, because it's not like the ALDS or ALCS where there's another series after this. Again, no matter what happens, if there's a Game 7, you're not pitching again till March or February or March for spring training. So empty the bag, it does, empty the tank, whatever you want to say. I mean, really be aggressive. For Snell, I say it every time with him, and I got to promise I won't do it win or loss. I can't nail him too bad, but he can't walk a lot of guys, and he's been really bad at that. He refuses I need to trademark this phrase. His refusal to acknowledge the strike zone is infuriating. He doesn't care to throw strikes. He just wants to throw sliders and curveballs in the dirt, and just these good hitters, these good scouting departments, the Dodgers, they told an interesting tale on the broadcast on WDAE, and definitely recommend you listen to that. By the way, just go on the MLB app. You can get the 3-day free trial, whatever. The headphone app in the top right corner, and then obviously there's only one game going. So my trick, you listen to the broadcast, going to be a little bit ahead of the TV. Wait for the pop of the mitt. The ball goes in the mitt. Immediately pause it after you hear it. Look up at your TV when the ball goes in the mitt. Resume it. And instead of having Joe Buck and John Smoltz, you've got Dave and Andy, who've been calling Rays games since 2005. You've got them synced up to the basically the telecast as if they're the commentator. So I found that to be much better. But either way, they told a nice tale that basically in Dodger Stadium they had to basically build a new visiting clubhouse because of how big their analytics department became. So obviously they know the tail on Snell. They know take pitches. When you get to 0-2, when you get to 1-2, don't swing, because he's just going to throw you pitches in the dirt. And I would like to just see more 0-2 fastballs or just something. Too many non-competitive pitches as well. He's only going to give you 5 innings probably. And the hope is it's 5 innings of no runs or a run. And by that time, hopefully the Rays have scored 3 or 4 or more than that. And then you can go to the bullpen and mix and match. I mean, Thompson, guys are going to have to get big outs. It's not part of this A-pen. I mean, whether it's Loop, Ryan Sheriff has come on nicely from the left-handed side. From the righty side, I mean, you know the tale. We've been doing this all year. I mean, Curtis, I don't love, but he may get some outs. Thompson, I really like, and then the big boys, Fairbanks, Castillo, and Anderson, and hopefully maybe what you do is maybe you only have to pitch all those guys 1 inning. Because, again, that could be your 7, 8, 9 innings. Snell gets you 5. Guess what? You only have to pick one other guy to get you 1 inning. So maybe Thompson takes the 6th. And then you go Fairbanks in the 7th. Maybe Anderson in the 7th or 8th because it seems like he never pitches in the 9th. And then maybe Castillo, who has been good in the 9th. And, again, you don't have to pitch those guys multiple innings. And they could go multiple innings in Game 7 if you can get there. Again, knock on the wood. So that's it. That's all I've got to say. I can't believe I did an hour and a half without even having a recap to talk about. But I thought it was a good show. I thought it was one of the better ones that I've done. A real in-depth little preview. I hope I provided some value, some things that you maybe didn't know. With that being said, I don't really want to do it, but I think I need to be on the air tomorrow, even with the loss. If they win, we certainly will be. If they lose, I guess we'll be on the air just to do a post-mortem, a little bit of the season, obviously, because we'll all be a little emotional if the Rays aren't able to come through. But break down the Game 6 as best we can and send you guys off on your merry way as this show will probably be put on hold for quite a bit because just the NFL, just football season is not enough for me to do these shows every day of the week. So we may be on hiatus until next March or April. Who knows? So I don't want the season to end just yet. I would like. I know we're at the max. I'm gonna get another 2 days of this, so get to soak it up as long as we can. But again, season's been so much fun. I know we've had some more people tune in during the postseason, and that's been a joy. Had some callers and things like that. Great callers all the time on this show. Always bring good stuff. So again, thanks to everyone who's listening. Game tomorrow at 8:08. Snell versus Gonsolin. Rays, please pounce early. First pitch fastball, swing at him. Do your thing. Snell throws strikes. Let's get the bullpen to lock it down. If you get to Game 7, it's going to be Morton v. Bueller, so we'll see. That's certainly going to be interesting. We'll be on the air right after the game. Win or loss. And as always, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.